Welcome to the Top Producer Podcast with Farm CPA Paul Neefer. The Top Producer Podcast challenges farmers to think differently. Farm management, tax issues, policy implications, and more. Gain your competitive advantage on the Top Producer Podcast. The Top Producer Podcast is brought to you by the next generation of weed control, Liberty Ultra Herbicide from BASF. Learn more about the best Liberty yet at liberty-ultra.us. And by Durastack Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastack technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
Welcome, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. This is Paul Neefer, your host. And in today's podcast, we're actually going to review SDRP Stage 2. We actually have a calculator. So if you're interested in the calculator, you can reach out to me at farmcpa@outlook.com. So we'll go through the calculator. We'll go through a lot of the details and so on. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let me go ahead and share here. And we're going to share this whole screen. Nope, not this one right here. So share that. And what we have is the website for SDRP. So we have stage 1. Everybody is fairly familiar. You've already done stage 1. Also, just a reminder, stage 1 is still open until April 30th of 2026. I think some local FSA offices do not realize that stage 1 is still open. They thought once stage 2 comes out that stage 1 is closed. They are both open until April 30th of 2026. So here I'm going to click on learn more about stage 2. What I want to go down to is all of the information here. So you got your SDRP stage 2 application instructions. This tells you how to fill out the actual form. This form is a whole lot more difficult than stage 1. Stage 1 was pretty much FSA sent it out, said, hey, your payment amount is 100 grand, then you had to multiply it by 35%. Here, in order to do a calculation for yourself, you got a lot more work involved. And we'll see how this goes. So this is the instructions. They got some FAQs. Again, your drought eligible counties. The final rule. So this is, I think, about 170 pages. Under both stage 1 and stage 2, you can have what's called quality loss. So even though you already collected your stage 1, you can go back and reopen stage 1 to collect what is called a quality loss. What might that be? Well, if you have forage like hay and so on, and your protein came out the wrong protein and you had a huge discount, so there's a separate one for forage. Now for like wheat, corn, soybeans, if you had excessive dockage, if you had excessive either too high or too low protein for like wheat. Out in my area where I grew up, we grow white wheat. Believe it or not, if we have too high of protein, we have dockage for too high of protein. And when we have a drought year like we did in 21, we had many farmers got $1, $2 a bushel dockage for that. So that would be something that you could do. Now, this is the final rule explains how that is done. So if we go down here, let me just quality loss. So stage 1, quality loss payment eligibility. So this is where you go through the calculations. This is sort of dealing with forage crops. And then here they're going through an example. And then for crops other than forage, you go through those calculations. Now, stage 2 is where if you had crop insurance, but you didn't collect a crop insurance based on the original coverage that you elected, but would collect it under what I call the SDRP stage 2 coverage level. So like at 80 or 85%, you actually recalculate it at 95%. So we have a calculation for that. Also, you have, if you didn't have crop insurance and you had you had a loss, there is the final rule goes through how to calculate that. Now, I have not worked up a spreadsheet for that Not sure if I'm going to. There's an example, if my memory is correct, in the final ruling on this, but I just wanted to share with you. So what we have then is if we go down here, I'm just going through. So here's your coverage level. So if it's less than less than 55%, you're at the 80%, then 55 to less than 60, you're at 82.5, 85, 87.5, 90, 92.5, and then 95%. Again, some people would say, well, this could be no, if we're comparing apples to apples, if somebody was at 65%, they originally didn't get coverage originally, now they're getting coverage, they would be getting a payment. Whereas under stage one, you might have already either gotten a payment or you got your payment originally back in 2023 and 2024. Every time I've done the calculation, the higher your coverage level, the more in total payment you're going to get. Now, also, before we dive into the calculator, it's probably very interesting under stage one. Now, actually, let's go back up here. Let's go over to stage one. Let's go back to, let's see at the dashboard. Under the dashboard, I want to see, we still have 5.7 data as of November 30th, so as of yesterday at midnight, basically. They've only paid out 5.75 billion under stage one. Let's see if they have a stage two yet. I doubt if they do. Nope, no stage two yet. And back in the, if we go back to the fact sheet, let's go to the fact sheet. Oh, not the fact sheet, the final rule. Let's go down toward the bottom. I apologize for this, but let's get to the bottom. Let's see if I can find this quickly. There is, I'm probably not going to find it quickly. Let's see. This is all the, this is the burden. Uh, Quite a bit of detail here as to how much time it's going to take, but there is, yeah, here it is. Under stage two, they're expecting to pay out 2.7 billion, and then there's 5 million for on-farm storage, and then milk loss, there's 1.65 million. So they're going to pay out roughly about 2.7 billion based on the 35% payment plus the other two smaller items. So if we add those two numbers together, 5.8 billion, I'm rounding it up, and 2.7, that is 8.5 billion. And they've allocated 16.1 billion for stage one and stage two. So for those of you out there that have been asking, how much are we going to collect under the top up? I'm going to call it the top up. I'm going to say we originally got 35%. I think the final number could be 30, 32, 33%. It won't be 35%. It won't be a double of what you collected. But based on the numbers they're showing, because all of stage one likely has gone out. Now, let's back up. Maybe there's another 300 or 400 million under stage one for quality losses. So I think we're in that 30% range, 25 to 30%. So let's go ahead and stop sharing on this screen because I want to, oops, hold on a second here. I got to go over here. That's what happens when you have multiple monitors. Now I want to share a window. I want to share a window. Where did my window go? I want to share files. Oops, so basic. Well, we're going to continue to share screen 3, and I'll bring my spreadsheet over here. Okay. Got a lot of white space there. I apologize for that, but I think you can see it. So this is the actual calculator that I have worked. It's based on the example. This is purely the example out of the final rule. And actually, before we, let me bring up one other thing. So let me go back. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to minimize this, and we're going to bring this up. So this is actually for my corn crop. I don't see a Social Security number on there, so I'm not going to worry about it. I had 80 acres in Iowa, almost 80 acres in Iowa. In 2023, we had a frost, and it was technically a drought county. The only information that USDA is, as far as I can tell, is going to provide, well, they're going to tell you it's corn, the county, the state, the bushels, my name, my wife's name, because she's SBI on there, supplemental. And then you have to agree to purchase crop insurance. And then the share. So it's 100% to me, 0 to my wife. What the disaster event was for me, it's drought and frost, late frost. And then RMA type, it's grain, RMA practice, non-irrigated, could be irrigated. Units of measure is bushels. Now the SDRP liability, that is provided to you by FSA, and then the amount of units. So for me, I had 7,215.90 bushels that were allocated to me for production. Now that's my 50% share, and the SDRP liability is also 50%. So when we're backing into that APH number, you have to realize that if you have a bunch of crop share, that's going to get sort of difficult. This is very easy when you, as a farmer, tenant farmer, only have cash rental ground. When you start having crop share and a mix of crop share and cash rental, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, perhaps, to do an estimate on this, but let's just go through it. So I'll minimize that. So I want to come back to the estimator or the calculator. So what I plugged in was the 48,269.30. That's the box 22 SDRP liability that FSA put in their final rule. And then the other number they put on there was the final production. This is soybeans, was 2,550 bushels. They did indicate to me in the example that there was 55 bushels of APH, or APH was 55 bushels. They also indicated that in this case, there was a quality loss of 3%. I think for most of you, you're just going to put in 0, but I'm just showing you the example because I want to prove that actually within a penny of their number. And they had also indicated that this producer had originally elected 65%. They indicated that the harvest price, or the price for soybeans, was the 2023 or 24, can't remember which, doesn't matter, but it was the harvest price. You're not getting the projected price, which was higher. You're actually getting the harvest price, which was lower. I think that's going to reduce your payment. I haven't gone through and calculated it, but I'm fairly certain in a way it reduces your payment because instead of using like $12 or $13, you're using $10. And then the acres covered, I backed into that. I was able, if we look at this calculation, I took C10, which is the box 22 SDRP liability. And what that liability was, that was based, instead of using 65%, it used 87.5%. So how I did it is I took 48,269.30. I then divided it by the number in C8, which is the 87.5% for SDRP stage 2 coverage. And then I divided that by the price. And then I divided it by the APH, and that backs into 100 acres even. And that makes sense. They didn't tell me it was 100 acres. So you're going to be playing around with your APH to get your acres correctly. I'm not going to guarantee in all situations that this calculator is going to do everything correctly, just because because they're going to be basing, I think, on enterprise, whatever coverage you originally elected. Now, I don't know if the filled-in application you're going to get is going to have enterprise on one line, units of production on another line, or whether they're going to lump it all together. They may lump it all together. In that case, my spreadsheet may or may not work very well. So I'm just warning you that up front. And then they indicated that they paid crop insurance premiums of $1,500 and the fees paid were $100. So let's go through how, and I broke this down into 19 steps. We don't need 19 steps, but I wanted to show you the whole process, how we're arriving at this. So step number one is we input the box 22 SDRP liability right off of your pre-filled in application. And then step two, we plug in the actual production. And then step three is one minus our quality loss. So in that case, I had 3% quality loss. That brings it down to 97%. And then step four, we just multiply step two times step three times the price above the $10.03. I could have thrown in step three, what is the price, but I didn't do that. I figured you could figure that out. And then we take step one minus step four, and that's 23,460.09. So that's sort of the first section. And then step six is we take the box 22 SDRP liability. We then take what was the percentage coverage that SDRP used, that's 87.5%. We divide by that number. Then we multiply it by the original calculation of 65%. That ends up with 35,857.19. And then we plug in the actual production times the price times a factor of one. And so that goes through, we multiply. So step 14 is just multiplying those three numbers together. Then we subtract that from the number that we got in step 10. So that's $10,280.69. And then we add in the premiums paid, the fees paid. And what we do is we take step 5, which is this number here. We subtract step 15, which is that number there. Then we add that number and that number. So the product of those four numbers, well, plus, minus, plus, plus, add that all up, multiply. So that's 14,779.40. Then multiply it by 35%. That's how we're going to arrive at the estimated payment. I had 5,172.79. They had 5,172.80. A little bit of rounding, just how the rounding goes. Now, originally, when I did the spreadsheet, I didn't realize that if your production was high enough, that you could end up with a negative number right about there. You could have a negative number. So if it is negative, because my spreadsheet was then adding back a negative, when you subtract a negative, you add it back. So I was calculating for mine in my claim in Iowa, I was actually getting a small negative number on step 15. So now I've updated the spreadsheet to show if it's negative, you just use 0 there. So you won't be adding that in. So that's how the spreadsheet works. Now, as I continue to get feedback, if there is a dramatic change to the spreadsheet, I will go ahead and put this on. Matter of fact, I'll probably work with Margie and she can use the spreadsheet if she wants to on some type of maybe put it on the AgWeb. But again, it's not a perfect spreadsheet because this is much more difficult than what you're dealing with under stage one. Stage one was very, very easy. You just simply went ahead and took the number that FSA used, that was on the application, multiplied by 35%. Voila, that was your payment, plus or minus. This, you got a lot more calculations. Again, I got 19 steps. I could add 20 or 21 steps to even outline it a little bit more. Let's see, anything else that I wanted to add? I think the key is that stage two will probably pay about half of what stage one paid out, at least according to their projections. I think we may be waiting February or March. Again, both programs do not end until April 30th. Does that mean they're going to wait until after April 30th to do the true-up? I don't think so, but I may be wrong. They may do a big tranche, maybe 80% of the final payment, and then the remaining 20% will happen after April 30th. Not sure on that, but we'll see. We'll go ahead and take a quick break for a sponsored message.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.
My dad has a solution for everything, whether it's some obscure tool in his toolbox or Liberty herbicide to deal with tough weeds. Now I'm continuing what he started by using Liberty Ultra herbicide from BASF, the best Liberty yet. It delivers 20% better weed control than generics thanks to its Liberty Lock formulation, and it's got easier handling too. So thanks, Dad, for teaching me to use Liberty Ultra herbicide. It's nice to know that good weed control decisions run in our family. Always read and follow label directions.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. I'm Paul Neefer, your host. Again, we're just finishing up on this situation. If you are interested in getting the spreadsheet, just send me an email at farmcpa@outlook.com, and I'll gladly send the spreadsheet to you. It is protected, just to make sure that it is protected. If you really want to unprotect it, reach out to me and I'll give you the code to unprotect it. But again, this has been the Top Producer Podcast, and I'm Paul Neefer, your host, signing off.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of the Top Producer Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.